Hello everyone, and welcome to PYLUSD for Truth. In this video, we're going to examine whether we can take Dr. Cherniss at his word. The answer will probably not shock you. In his most recent Monday message, Dr. Cherniss recognized Memorial Day and began his conclusion with this line: "I have lived by the notion that actions speak louder than words." So, we took this line to heart and decided that it was a good time to revisit Dr. Cherniss's actions and words in the Butler case from early last month, since we were able to obtain the entire transcript and not just the few pages Cherniss used to attempt to exonerate himself with the board. And whoo boy, according to the witness, Cherniss's words and actions reveal much about his integrity, or maybe more accurately, a lack thereof. We also found this a bit ironic, as one of the district's core values is integrity. Weird. Let's start off by noting that the witness was testifying under oath, and this deposition took place in August of 2021. Approximately 9 months after PVP-USD settled with AYSO for $230,000. The point being, the witness had nothing to lie for in support of Dr. Butler's suit. Okay, back to the agreement. In early November 2019, the witness testified that he received a phone call from Dr. Cherniss for a quote-unquote off-the-record meeting. He even describes what was meant by the term. During this off-the-record meeting, the witness also testified that Cherniss proposed that if AYSO supported the bond measure, then their lawsuit over the Ladera Linda fields would quote-unquote go away. The witness jumped at this offer since the district had been seeking closer to $300,000 at the time. He agreed to support the measure by providing email lists and making a monetary donation, the amount of which was not specified at the time. Sounded like a good deal. When questioned again about what he thought upon leaving this off-the-record meeting, the witness testified that he believed that by providing email lists and the monetary donation, then their problems with PVP-USD would go away. He also testified that their agreement was not contingent on the measure passing. Shortly after his meeting with Cherniss, he was contacted by the head of the bond measure, who received the witness's name from Cherniss. Based on the lawsuit and what AYSO Region 10 could afford at the time, they were prepared to donate $50,000 and provide mailing lists to the bond campaign in order to settle the disagreement with the district. When the witness was questioned by Cherniss's attorney as to why he thought $50,000 would settle with the district, he testified that he went by Cherniss's word, a decision that would be a costly mistake. The witness also testified Cherniss told him that they felt their chances of the measure passing were high and, quote-unquote, all signs pointed toward it passing. Reminder, the ballot measure lost by over 20 points. When the witness took this agreement to a small group of directors at AYSO, one of them, also an attorney, asked the witness to get something in writing. The witness testified that although he trusted Cherniss, the other board member, quote-unquote, did not trust him. The witness decided to ask for the agreement in writing. First, he asked the head of the bond campaign, but was told they were separate from the district, and they could not do that. When he asked Cherniss, who also explained he could not put it in writing, the witness asked Cherniss if their agreement from the off-the-record meeting still stood, and, still testifying under oath, stated Cherniss said yes. Cherniss also told the witness that he was going to send him an email stating clearly that the bond measure and the district were separate, and that he cannot legally put the agreement in writing. Here's a copy of that letter. When the witness was asked why he thought Cherniss sent this letter, he testified that he thought Cherniss had to, quote-unquote, cover his ass. Incidentally, this is the same email that Dr. Cherniss sent to the board in response to our video as evidence supposedly clearing his name. Instead, it appears that this email was part of an elaborate scheme to take advantage of the AYSO Commissioner's trust and ignorance of what Cherniss could do with the school board. In fact, the witness was questioned multiple times about the agreement throughout the deposition, and every time he asked Cherniss if their agreement was still valid, Cherniss's response was yes. So much for his words. Ironically, despite both Cherniss and the campaign insisting that the two things were separate, which they were, can you guess who accepted the $50,000 donation check for the bond campaign? That's right, Dr. Cherniss himself. He accepted before an AYSO banquet with no one else around. What was that, Leslie?
Nothing to see here, please!
For his part, the witness believed he had lived up to his end of the bargain. AYSO had supported the bond campaign with email lists and the $50,000. Therefore, based on Cherniss's word, their problems with the Ladera Linda lawsuit should have been over. However, Cherniss's words seem to have belied his actions. You can imagine the witness's surprise when the district, led by Cherniss, once again pursued their lawsuit against AYSO. A lawsuit that eventually cost AYSO $230,000 in November 2020. So how could the witness have been taken advantage of? Well, according to his testimony, he assumed that Cherniss was so positive the bond would pass that he could go to the board and get them to drop the suit. When the witness was questioned by Dr. Butler's attorney whether by April of 2020, after the bond failed and the lawsuit resumed, if he thought Cherniss had engaged in misleading action, he replied yes, because he stated that Cherniss knew he could not make the lawsuit go away, but claimed and implied that he could during their November 2019 off-the-record meeting. Some might even say Cherniss lied. And don't forget that this witness must have been credible because Dr. Butler's suit was scheduled to go to trial in January of last year, almost 1.5 years after this deposition. Then, it was conveniently settled and dismissed right before Cherniss came to PYLUSD. We're sure that's just another one of those weird coincidences, too. Remember that statement from Cherniss's Monday message? He sure seems to have demonstrated his principles all too well in this deposition. According to the witness, his words told one story, while his actions screamed another. This was a lesson that the witness and AYSO learned the hard way, a lesson that stakeholders in PYLUSD can avoid by not taking Cherniss at his word. So when he claims enrollment has increased by almost 800 students since the beginning of the year,
I'm convinced people are coming back to our district. And I know every meeting I talk about enrollment, but that is critically important. To date, we are now 500 more students over where we were last year at this time.
Moves money from one project to pay for one of his pet ones.
And Valencia Kitchen was on there. Is that still the plan?
We can still look at funding for that. Like I said, developer fees, we get
We
revenues.
could, or, I mean, that was what was planned in November.
Well, the board never approved any expenditure for it. Yeah.
Well, that was the conversation, and that was the expectation, that we were gonna be working on a kitchen at Valencia High School that's been needed for years.
Well, we're happy, like I said, we're happy
So
to
that's on the
agendize
table.
that. Absolutely not on the table.
Not on the table.
It's just not agendized today.
Okay, I'd like that agendized.
So I compared the two budgets, and I noticed that the new budget, as of February 23rd, had a brand new line item on it. And the line item is for Bernarda Yorba Innovations Labs for the 24-25 school year for $1 million. So this $154,000 is just the first payment for this. Also, I noticed that upgrade in classroom technology to support music education at secondary schools was down $900,000. Early education expansion down $440,000, and miscellaneous instructions up $630,000 are just a few of the highlights.
When he doesn't provide board members with information they ask for,
At that meeting, I asked for an updated budget for the Arts and Music Block Grant. And in that meeting, I was told that we would receive it. On February 29th, I emailed Dr. Cherniss asking for the updated budget again. And if you want a copy of my email, you can definitely public records request it. And he sent his response to me on March 4th. He denies my request. So on April 2nd, I did my own public records request asking for an updated arts and music instructional block grant.
when he says that his children have never trained at the training lab, should we take him at his word? Cherniss's actions tell the real story. So don't listen to his tales, watch what he and the rubber stamps on the board do. In simpler terms, what we should take away from this testimony is the cost for AYSO dealing with Cherniss, $280,000. The cost for USI so far, $1.2 million. The value of Dr. Cherniss's words, worthless.